So number one, when it comes to LinkedIn, this goes without saying, you need to be authentic, you need to be genuine, you need to be that way to yourself as well as the brands that you represent on LinkedIn. Number two, like I said, nobody wants to be sold on LinkedIn, but I think virtually everyone's willing to be educated on LinkedIn. And you also have to come in with an experimentation mindset. The last thing that I'll say, and this is where I put a lot of pressure on myself, and this is where I put the pressure on anyone that's a founder, a salesperson, or a marketer that wants to use LinkedIn, is that you need to understand what the pains and obstacles are that your prospects are trying to overcome. Number two, you need to know what they want to be educated on. And number three, and this is most important, you need to explicitly know what it is that your prospects want to learn from you. And if you can figure that out, if you can crack that nut, I think any, especially B2B business, could be really, really successful on LinkedIn.
Colin, happy Tuesday, my man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Daniel. I'm really excited to be here.
Sure, I'll just get right into it. And I think this is a fun way to get into it. So you started a company with no business experience whatsoever. How does that happen?
I would say pure luck and just serendipity. So yeah, I was about halfway through my senior in college with a criminal justice degree, and I had an opportunity to start a business from scratch. And I'd say I'm a measured risk taker, and I'm just like, well, I don't really have anything better planned, so why not? So a week after I graduated from college, I started my first company, and that's how I got into it. So yeah, never took a business accounting or marketing class in school, and just trial by fire. But I've been an entrepreneur ever since.
So you mentioned you were in criminal justice. Did you ever think about becoming a lawyer or something in law enforcement? Was that the path you were thinking about originally?
Yeah, I was really thinking about going to the FBI.
Got it. How do we know that you're not in the FBI?
Exactly. You don't. Delusions of grandeur maybe back then of being like the 007 of the United States. So, but but no, I can safely say I did not take that route.
Got it. It's all a front. Colin's just an entrepreneur on the surface, but realistically, he's working for the FBI, making sure we're all safe and sound.
Yeah, it's our
exclusively on the podcast. Okay, awesome. What'd you heard originally? But what'd you say that first company was again?
So the first company we started off doing like direct mail and data processing, and then the internet started to explode. So we brought in email marketing and web design, custom development, and I ended up selling that company in 2006.
Got it. Who'd you sell it to?
Just another entrepreneur.
Okay, sounds good. I asked because I think most of the time, most acquisitions are probably thought of as like these big companies acquiring these other companies. So I'm always just curious whether it's that or some other acquisition. But no, it's cool to hear what happened with that. But think about that first company. So it sounded like it was in like the direct mail space. That's something that you were helping companies with. I know you said you had no experience prior to that, but do you think it would have helped you or hurt you if you had experience before that company, kind of as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it probably would have helped. I mean, hopefully, I've had certainly plenty of failures throughout my entrepreneurial career. You want to learn from failures and you want to learn from successes. I think most entrepreneurs would say they learn the most from their failures, which, I would say is probably generally true. But having real world experience trying to be an entrepreneur, I think would have helped. I don't think having a lot more like schooling per se maybe would have helped. So many of the things you learn being an entrepreneur, you almost have to learn while you're kind of on the job.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Is there anything that you would say, thinking about your entrepreneurial journey, like, is there one thing that you think entrepreneurship taught you that you don't think you would have ever learned in school?
Well, two things. One is something that you have to just face and deal with, which is perseverance and resiliency. I think as human beings, we all experience that. But, in terms of like building something, and, especially that being a business, that it's things that are driving you to want to do that, whether it's, could be money, could be passion around what you're doing. It could be just an opportunity you see in an industry or a space. It doesn't really matter. People get driven by all kinds of kind of wants and needs. So I think that for sure, perseverance and resiliency. I think the other thing that I would not have probably understood is just the creative nature of building businesses. Like when we think of creativity, you think of musicians and artists and things like that. But building a business is innately creative, and it's tapping into, I think, a lot of the creative kind of abilities and capabilities of what it is to be human. And I don't think enough people realize kind of the beauty in that.
I'd emphasize that creativity point. It almost makes you think maybe it's overdue, or there's some kind of creativity or creative business curriculum that seems like it's overdue, in the sense that it hasn't really been placed yet in high schools and colleges. But it's interesting. I think it would be interesting to add that in, because I think a lot of times in entrepreneurship, you learn that, I think the issue is, especially with entrepreneurs, a lot of the time what you learn in school is kind of written off a script, and a script is innately written before, but the entrepreneurial journey has no script. So I definitely think that maybe there could be some kind of creative muscle added,
Yep. Nope. I totally agree. The other thing is, I mean, and I've done this multiple times on, various kind of subjects as it pertains to being an entrepreneur, but I've read plenty of books, about being an entrepreneur and how to be successful and things to avoid. And you read it, but then you go out and make those mistakes anyway. And so a lot of times you can, at least for me, in the way that I kind of experience life and kind of correct for my mistakes, is I need to experience a lot of that myself. And that's the best way for me to really internalize, learnings, is to go through it myself. And certainly different people experience, learnings in different ways. But for me, unfortunately, I would read and I would still make the mistakes they said not to make.
Were there any, you mentioned you read a ton. Were there any entrepreneurial books that really stood out to you as ones that really helped you in your journey? I know you said that a lot of the times you learn from others' mistakes, but sometimes you have to make those mistakes to really make that mental leap forward. But are there any books that, despite that, really had a big influence on you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think one of the shifts, like the E-Myth, I think is great for anybody that's like a small business owner. Like E-Myth is great. Another one, The Go-Giver, is really about that giving mindset. And I think that's super, super important. And actually, that's one of the main ways I've seen success through LinkedIn, is using that go-giver mindset. And then, there's lots of great books out there too, like Good to Great, Blue Ocean Strategy. I think some of the stuff around the Category Pirates, I think, is another fun one, around marketing and building your own kind of category. So, but yeah, those are some of the ones that I found to be really helpful.
How about this? Are there any non-entrepreneurial books or non-business books that helped you in your entrepreneurial journey?
But let's see, let's see. I don't know. I mean, I guess if I really make a stretch, like I really love kind of like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings type. So when I was a kid growing up, I'd read a lot of the Dragonlance books, and so I kind of liked, the characters that were kind of bucking trends a little bit and taking chances. They weren't good, but they weren't necessarily all evil either. They're somewhere in between. So I guess I take a lot of that, and just kind of risk taking.
Maybe they helped stretch your kind of creative muscle that we mentioned you have to have early as an entrepreneur. But staying on the entrepreneur topic, I know you mentioned you made a lot of mistakes earlier, but specifically, is there anything that you think you really struggled with early on?
Well, I can tell you the mistake that I made more. Well, so like early on, I mean, I was like literally started a company out of a cubicle and, grew it from there. And so, I think you can spend your whole life reading and learning. I think a lot of it, you just have to put it in practice, and you're going to struggle. And but through that struggle, you're going to also learn, and you apply those learnings, and you're going to grow. And that gives you opportunity for your business to grow. I think the biggest pain point that I had to get hit over the head multiple times was product market fit. So a decent amount of the companies that my business partners and I have built were SaaS, tech-based software, and they were kind of new products that we didn't really have a lot of competition on, but there also wasn't a real market need. And so we launched multiple pieces of software that we thought were going to go really well, and the market just didn't want what we had. So for, aspiring entrepreneurs, if you want to just kind of get your feet underneath you, and, businesses really should be there to generate revenue and profit. There's nothing wrong with starting businesses in industries that are already saturated in terms of people needing those products. So like one of my more successful companies is our digital marketing company. Another one we have is software development for entrepreneurs. So, there's nothing like, really new about what we're doing there. We've just been in the game long enough that we've built out, nice businesses with, with great client bases that allow us to then kind of take chances in other things. So it's not fun putting stuff out there and not getting users. It's not fun worrying about money and revenue. So if you can focus in on things that you don't have to have like a deep passion for, if you just have some interest in the area and you feel like you could help people out and you could do a good job and you could make money doing it, start there. Just start getting your business up and off the ground and making money. And, even if you're breaking even on what you're paying yourself, at least, you have an infinite runway. Like just start building.
You mentioned data, and data is a really tricky topic because obviously there are a lot of laws and international laws vary, and it's a mess to deal with in itself. But also, any sort of consumer data is really expensive as well. And obviously that helps when trying to create product market fit. But in this time where there's like a lot of these complications around data, and from the mistakes that you mentioned that you made in the past, what advice would you have for founders that are really trying to get product market fit right?
Well, I would go to the places where you can interact with them and not have to worry about data. So, as long as make sure your website is complying for whatever, local, rules and regulations are in place. There's lots of still legal third-party products that you can use to help get information about your website visitors and whatnot. But I still feel like, if you're B2B, really can't beat LinkedIn for generating an audience and, really building a pipeline off of that. I think, social networks in general can be good places to, with some of the B2C products that we built to start generating interest there at a pretty low cost. But you just got to be creative. And, there's tons of information out there on how to start building audiences around, those different platforms.
I'll get into more of this a little bit later, but now that you brought it up, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on like organic content versus ad spend?
Organic content, like just from a pure SEO
Yeah, from
play?
an SEO play. So it could be, say, for example, a video that you're making or just like a long post that you're making versus like an actual paid ad that's very targeted.
Yeah. I mean, they both have their place. So the beautiful thing about, paid media is like a spigot. You can turn it on or off. We almost think about it like renting that space, right? And, you can run all kinds of experiments. You can be fast. You can be agile. SEO is a long-term game. It's about owning space, and it's not cheap. So, SEO requires time and effort and expertise, and you can learn that yourself, and you can spend a lot of time. And if there's if you're kind of creating evergreen content and your business really has a pathway for people that get on that landing page and has an opportunity to learn, get value from that page, and then potentially buy from you, well, great. But if I've had countless conversations with owners over the years, and I said, would you rather have 10,000 impressions on your site and no leads, or would you rather have 100 impressions and 10 leads? Well, they all want the leads, right? So yes, it is a numbers game to a certain degree, but really you got to map it out to what are you trying to do. And for most business owners that we've engaged with, it's about generating leads and ultimately revenue.
Well, fair enough. I want to return to something we were talking about earlier, but a different twist on it a little bit. You spoke about where you struggled with early as an entrepreneur. Is there anything that you're still struggling with now?
Yeah, being an entrepreneur. So, I'll put it this way, like one of the sayings I love putting out there is, everyone is making up everything all the time. Okay. I don't care whether it's me, whether you're Elon Musk, whether you're, President Clinton or President Xi or whatever, government, nonprofit, for-profit, we're all just making everything up all the time. And so you're just constantly trying to get better. You're constantly trying to understand, your market and your place in it. And so what I love about that line is it does kind of even the playing field in terms of like what's actually happened. And so I hope everybody that's listening that hasn't started anything yet realizes everybody else is just making it up, but they're starting things, they're trying. And a lot of them, you're failing along the way. but you really fail your way to success. And so I would encourage people, do less reading, do less thinking, and do more doing. Like start building, start creating a landing page, start building out the site for what you want to sell, start engaging with your prospects way sooner than you're ever comfortable, and start seeing if you can actually verify if there's any there. I promise, if what you're putting out there is truly solving a pain, you will get feedback. I just saw this, I can't remember the name of the software, but it's like a startup-y software. The site isn't that great, but their value prop is the free version is visitors to your website will be identified with their LinkedIn URL, and they'll just put it through a Slack that you integrate into their site. So like you can start identifying visitors with their LinkedIn profiles of people that come to your site, and it's USA only right now. But so like I haven't used it yet, but like that intrigues me. Like I have it saved as a tab. Like I'm gonna probably try that. So if you're solving a real pain, I promise you, you will get energy coming back.
I like how you said, you fail your way to success. I think that was an awesome quote. And what you said earlier, everyone's just making up as we go. Now we know for sure you're secretly an FBI agent, because now you know that all these other big organizations also don't know what they're doing. So there's a fun tidbit there. But thinking about the journey overall, you started a company called Monkey Island Ventures with your friends, actually. So what's it like kind of starting a business with your friends, and what's it like working with your friends?
Yeah, so that was in 2007. So that very first company I started, I sold that in 2006. So in 2007, I started Monkey Island Ventures with Josh and Zach. We've all known each other since we were about 5 years old, and Monkey Island is named after a park we used to play at when we were kids. It still exists. It's in St. Paul, Minnesota. And, it's kind of our holding company. And so we've built a lot of brands underneath that, launched probably 12 different SaaS products. We did a successful Kickstarter on a smart water meter. We built our digital marketing company and our software development company underneath that. So I can't imagine being in business without business partners that I can be on the journey with, because it's incredibly hard being an entrepreneur. You having someone to share the ups and the downs, and there will be big ups and downs, and someone that you can trust, just wholeheartedly, that you just know they are there for the right reasons, is fantastic. I'd rather make way less money doing it with Josh and Zach than making a lot more money by myself. So we came up with the 5 F's about 5 years ago, maybe even longer now. But it's, freedom, finances, family, friendship, and fun. And we live by those core values. And I can't think of ever an instance where, a business decision, was ever anything that was really contentious. We all hold our friendship and, our families in higher regard than any business decision. And the reality is, very few business decisions are catastrophic. You can usually recover from most business decisions. So just knowing that and having business partners that share that same ethos has been just absolutely invaluable. So I highly encourage people to bring on, a partner or two if they're able.
So, working with your friends is a hot topic, and a lot of people would probably suggest against it. So is there a reason that you're like very for working with friends or working with people you know and like?
I would just kind of reiterate what I had said. The journey is really hard on your own. If it's more important to have the right people like on the bus. Going back to like the Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's about the right people on the bus, and then you can kind of figure out where the bus is going, and it's going to meander this way and that. Like I said, we've launched about a dozen SaaS products, and most of them failed and didn't make any money. One of them, though, we signed up, 30,000 users in 2 days, and we were a trending topic on Twitter, and that was really fun, but we didn't really make much money at it. We built another product that was within the first year and a half, we were over 6 figures ARR, and it was going really well. We ended up having to shutter that one, for something that was outside of our control. We built a smart water meter, got funded through Kickstarter, and then realized that there really isn't a market out there. It's kind of a false positive. And People don't care about water the way that they care about heat and air conditioning. So yeah, but all those were, as I look back, are, fun, but, scary at times adventures that I had with these guys. But we've been in it together since the beginning, and it's just been great.
So thinking about LinkedIn for a second, and I'll get into this briefly. I think it's one of the main things that you're working on right now. So just high level,
Yeah.
why do you think so many people struggle with growth on LinkedIn?
I think at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a social network. Okay, it's still about people and it's still about building relationships. But the beauty of LinkedIn is that it's a business social network. People are there to hire, to get hired. People are there to build business relationships, to buy and sell from one another. Okay, and it really has a monopoly on being a business social network. There really isn't another one out. I see the future of LinkedIn being really, really bright. Regardless of where the economy goes, I think LinkedIn is going to continue to thrive. Um, the issues that I think those of us that are trying to use LinkedIn as an avenue to build our business, to grow our business, is that you're approaching it and just trying to cut too quick to just getting people to buy from you. And I know that's not fun, but people are not on LinkedIn to be sold to. Nobody wants to be sold on LinkedIn. But I think virtually everyone's willing to be educated on LinkedIn, and that is where the opportunity is.
But fair enough. I want you to hold that thought. I have an interesting LinkedIn question later, but I'll save that for later. You mentioned obviously no one wants to be sold to, especially on LinkedIn. And everyone, I think, sometimes is looking for that secret sauce. When the reality is there's no secret sauce. It takes a while. But from someone that's been at it for a while, what do you think are some practical tips someone can take when it comes to growing an audience on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've figured out a few ways. So number one, I think about LinkedIn philosophically. Then I think about it underneath a layer of audience and audience intent. And then underneath that are campaigns and strategies. When it comes to LinkedIn, this goes without saying, you need to be authentic. You need to be genuine. You need to be that way to yourself as well as the brands that you represent on LinkedIn. Number two, like I said, nobody wants to be sold on LinkedIn, but I think virtually everyone's willing to be educated on LinkedIn. And you also have to come in with an experimentation mindset. The last thing that I'll say, and this is where I put a lot of pressure on myself, and this is where I put the pressure on anyone that's a founder, a salesperson, or a marketer that wants to use LinkedIn, is that you need to understand what the pains and obstacles are that your prospects are trying to overcome. Number two, you need to know what they want to be educated on. And number three, and this is most important, you need to explicitly know what it is that your prospects want to learn from you. And if you can figure that out, if you can crack that nut, I think any, especially B2B business, could be really, really successful on LinkedIn. So I'll stop there and let you take the conversation where you want. But if we want to get into like audience intent or specific campaign strategies that your audience can literally use as soon as they listen to this podcast, we can get into that.
We'll get into that in a second. But before I get into that, I have a bit of a controversial question because I have a bit of a controversial opinion on this. So a lot of times we see on LinkedIn, a lot of the times, and I see these posts a lot, there's like these long drawn out posts that like, I draw you in, hook you, and then force you to read throughout. And I think that a lot of these posts are actually written by copywriters, on behalf of that account. So I'm just curious to hear, what is your opinion about copywriters and using them for LinkedIn?
I think if at the end of the day, it's adding value to your prospects and they see it as high value and it's contributing to the LinkedIn ecosystem and it's still done in an authentic way, then I think it's fine. If you're just posting content constantly and it's just posts that really aren't adding a lot of value and it's just really adding to the noise, then I think it's a waste of time. Now, all that being said, posting on LinkedIn, I'm not consulting with my clients about their LinkedIn profile or their organic posts or how often they should be posting. That's not the angle that I take on LinkedIn. I'm more focused on helping my clients think about strategies that'll fill their pipeline with leads that can lead to sales. But building just general awareness and still being a human, that's again, it's a social network. share something that someone else posted on LinkedIn. Call out other people that have touched your life positively. If you're visiting, having dinner at a local mom and pop restaurant, and you post that up on LinkedIn and give them some praise, about the business they're running, that's all fine. Do that. That's good brand impressions, and it's keeping, kind of the humanness of who you are, which is important. So there's nothing wrong with that. But, I feel like so many people now are posting on LinkedIn and like becoming like philosophers, and they're posting all this stuff that like so many people are posting the same kind of types of content that it's just kind of becoming noise. But if you're able to do it and you're able to get good engagement and it's, getting you in front of the right people, then kudos to you.
For sure. So I would agree for the most part. I think when it comes to copywriting, and I think there's a lot of gray area here because these relationships with copywriters look different on a case-by-case basis. But I agree in the sense that if it's adding value and if you're kind of giving the tidbits of what you want, and you just want someone to expand on your human story, then I totally think that's okay. And at the end of the day, it's a business, it's a value proposition. Someone is there to help you out with that. But something that rubs me the wrong way sometimes when there's a lot of these like random noise posts, and I think just the way my mind works is like I've gotten very good at identifying like these long posts that are like, okay, like that's written by a copywriter. I think I program my mind to just kind of work that way. It's kind of posts I don't really like because I think like, yeah, they get engagement, but they're not really helping anyone or adding value, and just not the stuff I love to see. But that's just my opinion. I'm a human. That's my controversial take on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're using a copywriter, if that copywriter is just kind of making stuff up on their own and there's not a lot of engagement between you and them, that's one thing. But if the copywriter has worked with you for extended period of time and they really know you and they know your brand and what they're writing about is really assisting, the types of content that's getting put out there, that could very well be just fine.
For sure. Moral of the story: hire an in-house copywriter to stay authentic, or it might bite you in the ass in the long run. But no, it's a cool topic. So staying on a kind of the level of controversy, but not a controversial question. Don't worry, I won't pry too deep into that. But
you throw whatever you want my way. Ready.
A lot of the time, really simple or kind of, I use the word boring, but like boring posts, don't really get a lot of engagement. So do you think someone has to be controversial to get engagement on LinkedIn?
I'm going to answer that in two ways.
Fair.
One is if you want to be controversial and to get engagement on LinkedIn, you can do it. You could post something that's really political. You could post something that totally goes against the grain, and you're going to get, people that might disagree with you, and you could get like a whole bunch of like comments and, whatever, likes and who knows what else. For me, is that what's the purpose of posting that kind of content? Like, what's your end game? Is it, brand awareness in a positive way? Is that really accomplishing it? And then, is it helping you fill your pipeline, right? Like, are you actually driving leads and potentially sales with that? I venture to probably say most likely. So that's something that I wouldn't really spend a lot of my time in. That's
fair enough. I think it's just psychology. Sometimes if you see things you agree with, maybe you tend to just kind of, keep going, mindlessly scrolling, but then you see something you disagree with and it just like forces some kind of differentiation. Sure. So I feel like either that.
Yeah, no,
yep.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I was at an event last night, a blockchain event, and one of the women there it was like super hot and humid yesterday. Most people don't like that kind of weather, and she posted a post saying like her outside with a big smile on her face saying how much she loves the weather. And I even said to her at the event, I said, I was almost going to post something just saying like how much I disagree with you because nobody likes it when it's that hot. And she laughed and she said she actually posted that to be kind of controversial in a fun way, though, right?
So fair enough. I think, maybe controversy isn't the best way, but if you can be funny, then do that. Or if you can be like feel good, maybe I think the way human psychology works is those posts for whatever reason work as well. So maybe stuff that brings us together. But
yeah, humor and feel good.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Speaking about, we talked about a lot about posting on LinkedIn and what people should post and, some of the stuff that they shouldn't post specifically. But is there anything else that you think people shouldn't post on LinkedIn that you see a lot of these days?
That they should not do? That they shouldn't post? No, I mean, I just wouldn't post stuff that is alienating your audience from you. I think overall, LinkedIn is a pretty positive social network. You compare it to like Twitter and, that can be pretty caustic. But LinkedIn really isn't like that. So no, I would say, generally be good, err on the side of, being good and just contribute to the ethos and the ecosystem of LinkedIn. And I think you'll do
Maybe
well.
LinkedIn is the cocktail party and slash Twitter is the after party. So maybe
Yeah.
it's a good way of looking at it. But
Uh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yep, that's
So
good.
a lot of people, when they try to build an audience, there's a lot of talk about niche and really know who your customer is. And you talked about earlier how to really know your customer pain points and really try to figure out that value proposition. How niche down do
Mhm.
you think someone should be when it comes to building an audience?
Well, more specific, the better. And I can tell you that the way that um, I post, for example, like the LinkedIn live streams that I do, I'll post a live stream about learn how to grow your network leads and sales using LinkedIn. That's a general topic, okay? But then what I've done is I've carved out different niches. So like for founders, or for fractionals, for sales executives, for business coaches, okay? And so what I'll do is I'll grow my network into those kind of discrete groups. And then when I do a live stream, I will market the live stream and even customize the first slide of my live stream, which I also use as the image for my event. And I'll put it out there where I'll say, hey, I'm doing a LinkedIn live stream for founders or for fractionals or for business coaches. And then I'll market that event just to those niches. So my content is essentially the same, regardless of which group I'm going after, but I'm niching out the way that I'm marketing it. So not only do they see that the topic is something of value and that they're interested in, but then they also feel like it was built just for them.
Fair. And I think it's also when you feel that customized approach, there's almost that emotional attachment to a product or a service or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then it also allows you to see if there's certain niches that are responding more favorably to what it is you're putting out. So even the audiences that I build and that I use to expand my network, I can see, by each of these audiences, what my connection rates are like, or what my reply rate is to messages, or my sign up for events.
I know you spoke about this a little bit earlier, but say if you're doing LinkedIn right, do you think you should be reaching out to customers or should customers be reaching out to you?
Both. I err on the side of doing more of the outreach, but the way that I do it is around teaching. And so I have identified with, I'm using Rainmaker as the example because Rainmaker is a LinkedIn service. I have identified groups of people that I think would be interested in Rainmaker. So what I'm doing is I'm putting out content on how to grow your network leads and sales on LinkedIn, and I'm just teaching people how to use LinkedIn. They don't need me or Rainmaker for what I'm teaching. If they want to automate some of that, then they would reach out to me. But I'm just sharing my knowledge freely and building, relationships and also, leads and revenue for myself through that process.
How do you draw the line between knowledge that you want to share freely and knowledge that you want to keep behind, I'll say, a client relationship?
If you have something really proprietary that could be stolen from you, that is like, patentable, or is you're in the process of patenting, that's one thing. If you figured out, a way of doing things and you can show people how to do it, and then they can go and try doing it themselves and then realize they're not experts in it, that it's taking them more time than they'd like, then they're probably going to come back to you. One of the things that I had heard, which I think is really a salient point, is many times people buy from where they get educated. And so I think that is something I would err more on the side of giving away, your knowledge and sharing that and teaching, because I think that'll come back to you in spades in having people see you as a thought leader, as a trusted advisor, someone that they would be willing to do business with because you're educating first. and you're selling second.
I like that idea of educating first and selling second, and that people will buy typically from where they get educated. I think that that's something that should really resonate with people. So I would just emphasize that point.
Great.
You mentioned this a little bit earlier, the difference between impressions and audience counts and leads. Do you have to have a big audience in order to get sales?
None. No, you don't. What you need on LinkedIn is you have to have a built-out profile. It has to be authentic to who you are and what you do. I would recommend you have at least 500 connections. If you don't have it, I wouldn't make that stop your efforts, but I would really work on getting the 500
plus button
connections.
holds clout, essentially, is what Colin's saying.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Yep. And throughout the process, be authentic. Don't hire someone to give you a bunch of fake connections. Forget that. Get real connections with your ideal client profiles, or people that are in your local geography, that you might meet at networking events and things like that. But build your network out. But if you are providing educational value, and you are having people see you as a thought leader, as someone that really knows your area of expertise, you don't really need more than a base minimum of having a nicely built out profile and 500 plus connections. That's what I would aim toward. But beyond that, start building out connections and connecting with kinds of people that could be your clients, and start experimenting with what types of value you could start providing.
So the priority is establishing yourself as like a thought leader and value giver, and then the connections organically follow after that.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go. You don't even have to spend a ton of time being an expert in a whole bunch of different areas per se. So again, like if you look at the process that I am doing with LinkedIn for myself and my clients, is that once we identify an audience to go after, then we start creating a connection campaign. So we're connecting to 25 people a day, Monday through Friday, during normal working hours, 125 people a week, 500 a month. Okay, you could go do all this manually if you want. So build out the audience, then start connecting. You're going to get first connections. I promise you don't even need to send a connection message. Don't even worry about a connection message. If geography doesn't matter, start in the location where you live, where you probably already have a whole bunch of connections. Mutual connections is the number one reason why people connect with you. Start building out those first connections. Then after someone connects with you, send them a message and just have it be authentic. One of my clients is a law firm, and he's connecting with blockchain founders. Okay. And his first message after someone connects back was like, "Hi, Daniel. Thanks again for connecting. I'm really passionate about the blockchain space. I know you are as well. Look forward to seeing your content." Okay. He's not selling anything. He's not even trying to help. He's just thanking authentically for the connection. That's what you need to do. Just thank them authentically for the connection. Then if they don't respond, then maybe like a week later, you'll send like a follow-up message. Okay. Something, again, I'll use this lawyer as an example, where you'll say, "Hi, Daniel. More and more, I find myself writing about the intersection of law and blockchain, and I'm wondering if there's any topics you'd have interest in me writing about." Okay. Going back to the philosophy of like knowing the pain points of your prospects, he knows founders in the blockchain space have a lot of problem in the U.S. understanding what rules and regulations are going to come from the government.
What rules and regulations?
And so,
sorry, I had to fit that in. I couldn't.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like you just don't know, and that space is evolving quickly. But he's getting great feedback from these founders saying, "Oh, could you write about this topic, or do you have any insight on this law and whether it might pass?" So what is he doing with that second message? He's identifying opportunity for building a relationship, having his prospect engage. He's setting himself up as a thought leader. And I can tell you for a fact, he's driven conversations. He's gotten proposals out, and he's closed clients from this process just in doing that. There's one other strategy I want to get to before we end, but I'll see if there's any questions.
So I'll let you talk on that strategy, because my last question is about, I'm circling back from something before, but before we get into that, I would love to know about that second thing you mentioned.
Okay. Yep. And so LinkedIn live streams, I think, is one of the best ways for any business to fill their pipeline with leads. And this is how it works. And I'll send you mapped out my whole process and I have it on a one-page PDF. I'll send it to you afterwards, and you can share it with your
Awesome. I
audience.
appreciate that.
So the way that it works is identify an audience and identify a topic. Okay, so for me, it's, let's say, founders, business coaches, and it's about learning how to grow your LinkedIn network leads and sales. Okay, I create a LinkedIn live stream event and schedule that out like a week from now. Okay, then what I do is I identify a discrete audience. Say, okay, next week I'm going to focus on business coaches, okay, that are in my first degree network, and I'll send them all a LinkedIn invite to attend my LinkedIn live stream. Okay, and I did this about 2 months ago. I looked at about 200 business coaches. I reached out to connect. About 100 connected back with me, which is on the high end. Got a 50% conversion rate. Then I created a LinkedIn live stream on how to grow your LinkedIn network leads and sales. And I invited all 100 through the LinkedIn invite function. And I got 22 of the 100 to press the attend button on my LinkedIn live stream event. Okay, so I'm automating some of this out with Rainmaker, but you can do all this manually if you want. And then the beauty of doing a live stream are these. Number one, you can test your topic with your audience. If no one's clicking the attend button, then your audience or your topic or both are off. If you're getting people to click attend, then now you know, okay, you're onto something. And when someone clicks the attend button, it's almost magic because they're, number one, identifying who they are. They're letting you know that they're interested in what it is that you're teaching. Number three, they're also saying, trust you, Colin, and I trust Rainmaker, and I want to learn from you. And what that allows me to do then is after the event is over, I follow up with each attendee, and I say, like, hi, Daniel. Thanks so much for registering for the LinkedIn live stream that I led this morning. Not sure if you were able to make it or not, but in case you missed it, here's a link to the recording. And I link back to the event on LinkedIn. And then I'll say, if you ever want to chat LinkedIn strategy, feel free to grab some time convenient for you here. And I give them my Calendly. Okay. So anybody that's doing a B2B business, getting a meeting is really the lifeblood of your business. And so if you look at my process, what I've just mapped out, I've gone from identifying an audience and a topic. I've created the live stream. I've gotten people to click the attend button, and I'm following up with a Calendly, and it doesn't feel salesy, doesn't feel spammy, doesn't feel icky in any way. And it's just a natural next step. And so I found that process to be really invaluable in helping myself build out leads and get one-on-ones and actually close clients. And I'm seeing my clients really starting to dive into this process as well and seeing results. So I really highly encourage your audience to look at LinkedIn live streams, because there's also not a lot of people doing them, and LinkedIn wants to push more live stream content.
So it's almost, if you look at it from a high level, it's almost like a soft funnel. Every time you're just trying to figure out, educate. Eventually, a part of that educated demographic is going to want to do business with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, if you're teaching them elements of what it is that you do, I can guarantee you that what you're teaching and what you do and what you're an expert at and what people hire you for, there will be a percentage of your audience that will see the need to hire someone like you, and they're going to want to engage.
All right. So here's where I want to end off. And we spoke about where people spend a lot of their times now, especially on social media. And we focused a little bit about LinkedIn. But, a lot of people are trying to grow on social because that just happens to be where people spend most of their time these days, whether that's Snapchat, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, I guess TikTok, pick your poison, wherever. But thinking high level, do you think that there's going to be a big shift at some point about where people spend their time?
Well, I mean, ultimately, like there's kind of three things that I think are inevitable. One is AI, the next is blockchain, and the last is the metaverse. So do I think like we could head to like some type of like a matrix future where people are plugging in, and living in their own kind of utopia? Yeah, that's possible. I think that's very possible. But until we get there, I think, for like if your prospects are on LinkedIn, and I think most businesses, even B2C, because it's still people, right? Still human beings on LinkedIn. I still think there's just tons and tons of opportunity on LinkedIn that people just are not taking advantage of.
I think when you said three things, the first thing that came to mind is he's about to say death, taxes, and LinkedIn live streams. But I think that the three that you mentioned is surely valid. But no, Colin, I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
I do think we could have this futuristic society, but I guess, and this is an uneducated, unprofessional guess, I think for the next 5 to 10 years, I think growth on social media is probably a safe bet. So with that, Colin, thanks for all that great advice, and thanks again, man, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Daniel. Really appreciate your questions. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. I'm happy to say that the podcast is growing across all platforms and has just surpassed 100 listeners. So if you've enjoyed the content or learned anything valuable, then please subscribe to the podcast. Subscribing helps me immensely and lets me reinvest in the show and give you guys an even better experience. So if you want to see businesses Blumin get even bigger and better, then smash that subscribe button. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.